Let's experiment with the code a little bit now so that you get a better understanding of certain aspects of Python. I want to focus here on the for loop. The for loop iterates over the to-dos lists and accesses the index and the item in each iteration. It constructs a string and it prints out that string in each iteration. Now, if I press enter here and then I press backspace to go one indentation level back at this point, same level with the for loop, and if I say print index comma item, what do you think we're going to get? And also I'd like to print out hello before that. So let's see. I'm going to run this, add a to-do, clean the keyboard because it has to be clean sometimes, add a new one, the monitor as well, and a third one, add buy grocery. Press enter, press show, and let's look at the output. So perhaps you guessed what we're gonna get. So we get clean the keyboard, clean the monitor, buy grocery. All these three are produced by the print row line in here, this one. And then we have this third line, hello to buy grocery. So that is produced obviously by this line. We get hello printed out, and then we get 2 because index is 2 and item prints out buy grocery. So why did I do this experiment? Well, this was to show you that once the loop ends, which is the case when you unindent the loop as we did here, then these are still variables. Index and items are still variables. And index has as a value the last index in the for loop, and the same goes for item. Item, the variable, will also have as value the last item of the list. So the loop went over and over again. Index was first 0, in the second iteration was 1, in the third was 2, and so once there were no more items in the loop, we get index assigned the final number, the final value of 2, and the same goes for item. So I hope that gives you some perspective to understand the for loop better. The index particularly could be used if you want to calculate the length of the list. So basically you would say length is index plus 1. So that would print out length is and index plus 1, which would be 2 plus 1, 3. So we would get length is 3. Or you could also use an f string if you like. So f length is, and you'd have to put this inside curly brackets and close the string with a quote. So let me run this, add to do 1, add to do 2, show, and we get length is 2. However, getting the length like this is quite a workaround. I would even call it a hack, because calling it a workaround is giving it too much credit. The actual way to get the length of a list is by using another more appropriate function, and that is the len function. It's a function, as argument it gets the list. And the len function doesn't even need a for loop. So if you wanted to show the length, all you'd have to do is like that, run, add to do 1, add to do 2, show, and you get 2. So that is the output of the length function. So anyway, we don't need the length in this app, so I'll just delete everything and keep the loop as it was before. An experiment now over the enumerate method. If you open the Python console and you do for I item or ij, whatever you like, so I is about the index, j is about the item itself. It doesn't matter what variable names you use. In enumerate, hello, print I and j. Execute, and this is what you get. So strings can also be used with the enumerate function, because strings also are sequences of items, and each item is itself a string, so each character of the string is a string itself. That's why we get 0 in the first iteration, age, so j prints out age, then we get 1, e, and so on. So that's something to keep in mind. Now, you know that functions return an output, right? And here is a function. So what is the output of this function anyway? Or let's try a list as we did before. So let's say A, B, and C. And if we check A, we get this. So that's a bit confusing. The reason we get this is that the enumerate function returns an enumerate object. So just like we have list object types, we have strings object types, we have integers for numbers, we also have this strange object here. The difference here is that Python doesn't know how to display this object. The object actually contains data, but you cannot see them. So it is not designed, the object itself is not designed to display those data in the command line. But if you use a popular type such as a list and you place that object in a list, so basically to convert it into a list, you press enter and you get this. So now we have a representation of that enumerate object. This is actually the internal construction of that A object, but now we can visualize it using a list. We can see it. So it's a list made of tuples. That's the first tuple, the second tuple, and the third tuple. Each tuple contains the index and the item itself of the original list. The index of B and the B itself, index of C and the C itself. So actually when we do for ij or for I item, whatever you call them, in enumerate, and you have that list here, ABC, what you're actually doing is you're doing this. For I item in this list. So enumerate is a list of tuples. And you say print I item, press enter, enter, and we get this. So actually I is getting the first item of the first tuple, and then item is getting the second item of that first tuple, and we print them out here, and we do the same for the other tuples. So that's about the enumerate object. Of course you can do the same with a string, so hello, and you can convert it into a list. Sorry, I did a typo here. Enumerate. So B is an enumerate object, we can convert it into a list. And now we see that same construction. However, if you're thinking of converting the B enumerate object into a string, you'll get a bit disappointed, because all this will do is just convert that representation to a string. You see it has quotes now. In other words, str doesn't do what you intend to do. It's actually useless here. It is useless because the anatomy of an enumerate object would not be able to represent using a string, because a string is just made of character of strings, and a list can be made, as you see, can be made of other tuples and other lists or other items, strings, numbers. That's why it is possible to convert enumerate into a list. And that was a series of experiments on the for loop and the enumerate object. Thanks a lot.